we had an antagonistic relationship with Child Youth and Family. We saw them as not assisting our families. There was a really negative perception by the community of Child Youth and Family, and yet Child Youth and Family had enormous power in our whānau's lives. So that was the very beginnings of me thinking, how do we change this? That the benefits for our whānau of an NGO and Child Youth and Family beginning to work together would outweigh anything else we've done beforehand. So that was the very beginnings, was that thought that we had to shift and move out of our silos, our defensive silos, and create a whole new way of collaboratively working. So that's way before I'd ever met you. It arose more as an idea, and I began talking with a series of acting managers through the 2004 to 7 type period to see, could we develop a vision of how by working together we could move the game for whānau in our community.
So what's your role here, Bruce?
I'm Chief Executive of Te Aroha Community Services.
And Donna?
I'm Site Manager for Manawatu, Child Youth and Family.
So
And I guess it's good to know that I didn't know that's how you felt about Child Youth and Family, because I started working with you when I was practice leader, I think, so it would have been around about 2006-07, and we began to build a little bit of a relationship because you, in those days we had service units and things like that, and you were going to be doing some assessment work and working with some of our children, young people in their whānau. So I remember coming here and working with you and your team, and I think I had a supervisor as well with me, and we went through at that stage, I think it was RES or something like that. So we started talking with your team about what Child Youth and Family did, what our thresholds were, what the risks around care and protection and things like that. And that was a really good couple of hours, I think.
So that was the risk tool.
It was a risk tool, and it was around when we do assessments, what are we looking for, what's child protection, all that kind of thing, like just getting a common sense of what we do and how it fitted into the work that Bruce's team are doing. What do they need to look for, what they already were looking for. I think that for me that's the beginning of when our working relationship.
And that was about sharing resources, that you had training resources that we could benefit from, but also more importantly it was developing relational links with key staff in Child Youth and Family and ourselves.
Yep, that's right, getting a sense of who we were. And then I guess from my perspective, I moved into a Youth Justice Manager role, I think, from there. And did some work there for a couple of years and then came back into the site manager role. And by the time I got back into the site manager role, I was really interested in early intervention for our young people. And I'd identified a gap around young women and services and resources for young women. I guess that's when I saw you, I rang you up and said, I've got an idea. Yeah.
I think there's this, from my end, there was the growing sense of disillusionment of how we were working with youth, marginalised youth in the community. Out of our whānau development work, I repeatedly saw some of my core social work staff having tag-along kids, and whenever I asked the stories behind these kids, they were in the process of being excluded from education systems, and from that point on they just seemed to get discarded. And so I was very keen to see to find another way forward, and I found kinship in your thinking. I was thinking of boys. You challenged me to move genders to girls, but I could still see that we had a shared vision that something else might be possible, even though we were unsure what that possible might look like or even be.
Had a kind of a sense of, we keep doing the same thing, we're going to be getting the same results. And
Yeah.
I guess when you talk about the kids that were sort of following on, some of your staff and following them around, we were also experiencing that with some of our young people who was really challenging behaviours, and they were kind of excluded, and whatever we were doing, it wasn't working for them. So, yeah, same kind of feeling, really.